Okay, so I forgot to start the lesson on time, or the recording on time today, so you missed Numbers 36. Sorry. We're starting now on Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 1. These are the words which Moses spoke to all Israel across the Jordan in the wilderness, in the Arabah opposite Suf, between Paran and Tophel, and Laban and Hazeroth and Dizab. It is 11 days' journey from Horeb by the way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea. In the 40th year, on the first day in the 11th month, Moses spoke to the children of Israel according to all that the Lord had commanded him to give to them. After he had defeated Sihon, the king of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon, and Og, the king of Bashan, who lived in Ashtaroth and Idril, across the Jordan in the land of Moab, Moses undertook to expound this law, saying, "The Lord our God spoke to us at Horeb, saying, 'You have stayed long enough at this mountain. Turn and set your journey and go to the hill country of the Amorites and to all their neighbors in the Arabah, in the hill country and in the lowland, and in the Negev by the sea coast, the land of the Canaanites, and Lebanon, as far as the great river, the river Euphrates. See, I have placed the land before you and possessed the land which the Lord swore to give to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to them and their descendants after them. I spoke to you at the time, saying, I am not able to hear the burdens of you alone. The Lord your God has multiplied you, and behold, you are this day like the stars of the heaven in numbers." Now, I'm going to stop there for a second because this kind of reinforces what we talked about before. Because remember, the second time they counted Israel, we looked at the numbers, and if you looked at just the numbers, like, not that many of them. Like what, 500,000 maybe? Just not that many people. But by the time you added in the young, the old, and the women, remember they weren't counted. By the time you added all that in, it was a heck of a number. We were now in the millions, right? So it was about perspective. So yeah, they are, as God said they would be, like the sands, or stars of the sky, or sands of the ocean, because it is that many people. They really have been prosperous. Even in the wilderness, they've been prosperous. Why? God took care of them. Think about it. Nobody went after them. Nobody touched them. All other nations, you hear about wars and rumors of wars, right? That's the reference. But when they were out in the wilderness, they didn't have any enemies. They didn't have anybody coming after them. They didn't have things the only thing that decimated them was themselves, right? Earth opening up and swallowing part of them, snake bites, other disasters. Why? Because they didn't follow Yahweh. But as long as they were following Yahweh, they didn't have any problems. They didn't have any opposition. It was a great thing for them. So yeah, they really increased in their numbers. Okay, so continuing on here in 11. May the Lord, the God of your fathers, increase you 1,000-fold more than you are, and bless you, just as he has promised you. How can I alone bear the load and burden of you and your strife? Choose wise and discerning and experienced men from your tribes, and I will appoint them as your heads. You answered me and said, this thing which you have said to do is good. So I took the heads of your tribes, wise and experienced men, and appointed them heads over you, leaders of thousands, of hundreds, of fifties, of tens, and officers for your tribes. And then I charged your judges at that time, saying, hear the cases between your fellow countrymen, and judge righteously between a man and his fellow countrymen, or the alien who is with him. You shall not show partiality in judgment. You shall hear the small and the great alike. You shall not fear man, for the judgment is God's. The case that is too hard for you, you shall bring to me, and I will hear it. Now, so far, and again, I know this is just a recap, but again, I'm going to recap. This is the way been told to do it. How do we do it today? I'm not just talking about church, because keep in mind, this is a people. This is not just a church. It is. They're all worshiping one God, Yahweh, the only true God. But at the same time, they're also the nation of Israel, right? That's what they're known as. So you have to look at it from that perspective. Now, today in the U.S., I can talk best about our setup, in which case, yes, we have leaders over various organizations. We have city leaders. We have county leaders. We have state leaders. We have federal leaders.
We have bureaucratic leaders.
Oh, we got tons of that. We have politicians and we have leaders. They're two different things, in my opinion. It's all true. Now, and we break this stuff down as much as we can. Why? Because we're foolish. You need to have a leader, but you've got to have a leader that is honorable. And so he took wise and experienced men. Notice that's the verse 15. That's specifically what he said to do. Wise and experienced. He didn't say take the self-absorbed, take the people with money, take the people with the most possessions and put them in power. But that's largely what we do, isn't it? We had somebody spend over $100,000 in Williamson County just to run for an elected unpaid position in the Republican committee. Over $100,000 on an unpaid position that can't really do anything. I mean, you're a party leader, but you really? All you do is help organize stuff. You don't really do much. I mean, you can affect some things, but not everything.
Well, how do the people in Congress, what do they draw? 150,000, whatever. How do they come out rich?
Ask Nancy Pelosi. I can tell you there. It's insider trading, but that's simple one. Yeah. Well, that's how presidents tend to make money when they leave office. Clintons went into office with they went in dead broke. In fact, they were in debt. And then they came out millionaires and made millions more since then. And on top of influence peddling in the Clinton fund. But he would go give speeches to a room of 20 people and walk out with $10 million. It's like, really? Is that really what just happened? Because nobody paid that kind of money for it. So, right. My point is, I'm trying to get at what he said here, and that we need to have wise and experienced people as our leaders, and that's what my focus of this is. I'm just trying to make the differentiation between what we're shown, the example the Bible gives us, and what we do in this country. Why? I can't affect what happens in Africa. I can't affect what happens in China. I can't affect what happens in Russia. I can affect what happens here to a very small degree. And that's why I'm focusing on us in this country. This is the one we're responsible for. This is the one God has given us the ability to live in. And I'm just trying to make the case here, if you will, of how this should work. And the fact that, and this is another positive thing in a sense, now he's telling you about how to do judging too. It says, you judge over these people. Don't worry about your decision. This is God's decision. Meaning, you need to listen and look for a decision from God, not from yourself, not what you want. Which typically would also mean following the law, right? Because that's what a judge is supposed to do. And Moses has given out a lot of law. We've gone through that in here, where Moses has laid out, you shall not murder, and if you're murdered, hey, we're going to go kill you. Why? We don't accept that. We don't accept people like that here. So, just one example, but they do others for theft and all this. So we've been through a lot of that. So what they're doing is these judges are to follow the law. Why? Because the law is given by God. So if they follow the law, they're following God. That's the idea.
So where are we going to find a leader like that?
That depends. There are people that are willing to follow God in politics, but there aren't very many. And the problem is, we tend not to let them get beyond the local or maybe the state level, and then we're not letting that happen anymore because there's too much money involved. But
Well, Preston, can you be a Sunday school teacher and a politician?
I don't know. The bigger question is, can you be that and the vice treasurer of the RNC for Giles County too? Yeah, I got elected that the other day. So, there are plenty of things out there. Can you? That's a good question. We're still trying to figure that one out. That's a new role, so we'll see.
There's the story of Rebecca Jackson,
Yeah.
what she did. This is a friend of mine from high school, very close, dear friend. And she was elected basically mayor of Jefferson County, Kentucky, which is Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
And she was one of the few Republicans that got elected in Kentucky.
Yeah.
And the first President Bush was coming through town, and they called her and said, we'd like to come see you. And it was a Sunday that he was going to come. She told them no, she would be at church, but he was welcome to come to church with her.
Wow.
And he did.
Which is,
So proud of her.
yeah, that's one of those. There are a few, like I said, that are willing to do that. When you tell the president, no, I won't meet with you there, but I'll meet with you at church and we can talk after. That's impressive. It is. But the same person then made a run for governor, and that didn't work out for Kentucky, and that didn't turn out so well.
She was Republican.
Yeah, well, that doesn't go well in
And God,
Kentucky.
she wouldn't do the backhand deal.
Yeah, well, that's what gets you in the end, which is why we need to clean up our system, but that's a separate issue. You'll notice here there's no discussion of third parties providing funding. In fact, there's no mention of funding at all or payment at all, right? So the judges weren't worried about that. That's not why they were serving. The leaders of thousands and of hundreds and of tens, none of our conversations so far have been about payment for these, right? Now, there's a caveat to that. What does that mean? Well, you have to be rich. Why? Because otherwise you're not getting paid. But that probably means you're a wise and experienced man, which was the qualification, right? Giles County loves to have their committee meetings at 9 a.m. in the morning when the majority of people cannot show up and therefore can't run for commissioner because they can never be at those meetings or be there to vote. Does that mean they're wise and experienced, or it means you have to be old and retired? Well, most of ours are old and retired or self-employed. So we got some of those too. At least two of us are. Well, two were. So it's perspective. I'm just trying to put down that you have an example of how things are going to work. There's no mention of lobbyists. That's something we should outlaw. That would solve some problems. But again, I'm just trying to let you know that you have an example of how government should be. That's all my real focus was here. And the fact that, like he said, if the lower judges can't handle it, bring it to him. So the equivalent of the Supreme Court. You let things go uphill if you have a problem with it. There's always someone else that can help. All right, continuing on here, and I think that's 18. I commanded you at the time all the things that you should do. Then we set up from Horeb and went through all of the great and terrible wilderness which you saw on the way up to the hill country of the Amorites, just as the Lord our God had commanded us, and we went to Kadesh Barnea. I said to you, you have come to the hill country of the Amorites, which the Lord our God is about to give us. See, the Lord your God has placed the land before you. Go up and take possession of as the Lord, the God of your father, has spoken to you. Do not fear or be dismayed. Then all of you approached me and said, let us send men before us so that they may search out the land for us and bring back to us word of the way by which we should go up and the cities which we shall enter. This thing pleased me, and I took 12 of your men, one from each tribe. They turned and went up into the hill country and came to the valley of Eshcol and spied it out. They took some of the fruit of the land in the hands and brought it down to us. And they brought us back a report and said, it is a good land which the Lord our God is about to give us. Yet you were not willing to go up but rebelled against the commandment of the Lord your God. And you grumbled in your tents and said, because the Lord hates us, He has brought us out of the land of Egypt to deliver us into the hands of the Amorites to destroy us. Really? Really? Somebody that hates you is going to get you out of slavery, provide food for you, provide water for you, put up with your grumbling, and then sin and perform miracles, and then after that, they're going to send you in to be slaughtered? How does that make any logical sense? Yet this was their mindset, right? This is what kept happening. They kept not listening to God. I mean, and this is part of the problem. Why did they think they needed to send scouts in the first place? They were just told. What were they just told? Do not fear or be dismayed. The Lord is giving you this land. Why do you need to go scout it out?
Yeah, the Lord didn't tell them to.
No. Moses even thought, that sounds like a good idea. I'd like to know what we're getting into. Why? God already told you what you're getting into is your new land. Right? I mean, this is where we all have a hard time listening to what God is telling us and following through with it. He tells us what to do, but we always think, well, that's good, we'll do that. But, I want to do this first, or I want to know this first. And that's not usually the way God wants things to be. Yeah. And it's caused them problems. I mean, I think it was questionable for them when, at the end of Numbers here, what they do? They had 2.5 tribes stay on the other side of the Jordan. They didn't want to cross over. Well, it wasn't what God said, it's what they said they wanted. Now, it was allowed, but would they have been better off if they went with God's original plan? Probably. Usually, God's way is best. Well, for me, I'll pray for things I want, but I'll make sure to say if that's your will. Even when it comes to healing somebody. Well, we've all seen this happen, where somebody prays, take this cancer, this disease, whatever it is, away from me, and God does it. But God still has a plan. And guess what? Your death might have been part of it. So guess what? You're still going to die. It's just, God will relent, but His overall plan doesn't change for us.
Yeah, if you mind, I think I told this before, at our church in Nashville, we had these awesome people, man and wife. We prayed diligently for them, for cancer. And they, as far as we knew, they were healed. What happened 6 months later, we came in the car.
Yeah.
I think that's an example of God's will is going to prevail.
Yeah, God is willing to listen to us, and He's willing to relent, but He's not changing His game plan.
Well, that's what Jesus tried. Pray for me, but
Yeah.
This is your will, take this cup from
Yeah.
me, but not my will, but yours.
Yeah, and this is the example that we have. We can pray for what we want, but we need to remember that it needs to be within God's will. And I've heard people pray things, and my father always loved this one. Thanksgiving, these fool people praying that haven't prayed all year long, right? And they're at Thanksgiving dinner and they're asked to pray. And, oh Lord, please make us truly grateful for the things the things we have received. How does He make you truly grateful? I'm going to take everything away, and now you're going to know how good you had it. You watch what you pray for, because God just might follow through with it.
Pray for patience. No, don't pray for patience.
No. I want 2 things, Yahweh. I want it all, and I want it now. Problem solved, right? He'll find a way. I'll teach you. I'll give it all to you, and I'll take it all away. You didn't say anything about that part. So my point is just that you need to remember what you're asking for, and whether if you've gotten a response, if you're following that or you're doing what you want. Because I started my own business 16 years ago. I always wanted to be self-employed. And I prayed about it because I knew I wanted to be self-employed. I thought, hey, this is great. God's going to let me be self-employed. This sounds too much like what I want, what my heart wants, versus what I'm supposed to do. So I prayed about it even more. because I wasn't certain it was the right thing to do. And I prayed in this case. I said, okay, just let me know that my current partners in my business, that they're doing something that illegal or something we said we wouldn't do. Let me know, and that will be, to me, the proof that this is the direction you want me to go in, that you want me to start my own business. Then I'll know it's not coming from me. What was it, about 2 weeks later, I found out, oh, my partner decided it was important to pay us, but not to pay taxes. I'm out. That was it. I came home, told Julie, hey, we're starting our own business. Why? Because at that point I felt I had clarification from Yahweh to do what I wanted to do, but I had to make sure it wasn't me, because I was afraid I was going to fail. It was also a terrible economy when I started it. So starting out a business out on your own was a really dumb idea, but I wanted to do it anyway. So,
But you had Julie's backing.
I did.
Along with God.
I did, which is,
That's very important.
yeah, and I also had a relatively young kid, only one at the time, and so, yeah, this was all a big deal. My point is, you've got to follow what God wants and make sure your prayers are aligned with that. And here, you don't see him talking about, Moses asked God if this was acceptable. No, that sounds like a good idea. Let's do it.
When we get in trouble is when we start trying to leave instead of trying to follow.
And that's entirely true. Yeah. Yeah, and you're right, but that's what I'm trying to make a point of. And, it's something where we forget sometimes that, God didn't say not to go in. No, he didn't, but he didn't say to go in either. So maybe you need to pray about it first. So anyway, let me find where I left off here. You were not willing to go up, but rebelled against the command of the Lord your God, and you grumbled. This is typical for them, right? So let's pick up at next one here. So where can we go up? Our brethren have made our hearts melt, saying these people are bigger and taller than us. Or the cities are large and fortified to heaven. And besides, we have the sons of the Anakim here or there. Well, okay, large cities, fortified. Okay, they're bigger than us, taller than us. Well, isn't that back when it gets into being faith? About faith? Having faith in God? Yeah, okay. That's fine. They're bigger than you, but who made manna fall from heaven to feed you? Who provided water from a rock? I mean, really, a rock. Who did this? Yahweh, for his people. Yet they're worried about that while they could survive in the wilderness. I don't know. It's just, okay, and just as a quick reminder, who are the Anakim?
Giants.
Technically not giants. Rephaim is, Rephaim, I think it is giants. Yeah, this is, Anakim is the sons of fallen angels.
6 toes, 6 fingers.
Yeah, basically. So that's what they are. So a little variation there. I mean, and I say that because in chapter 2 they're going to make a differentiation between the two. So that's the reason I'm bringing it up now. I'm not trying to poo-poo the idea too much, because it is accurate. They are giants, but there's a difference between the two, they say. So anyway, they've just got to figure this out. So then I say to you, do not be shocked nor fear them. The Lord your God, who goes before you, will himself fight on your behalf, just as he did for you in Egypt, before your eyes. And in the wilderness, when you saw how God, Lord your God, carried you, just as a man carries his son, in all the ways that you have walked until you came to this place. But for all this, you did not trust the Lord your God, who goes before you on your way to seek out a place for you to encamp, in fire by night and cloud by day, to show you the way in which you should go. I mean, yeah, come on. They had a miracle every day. They either had a cloud, or they had by day, or they had fire at night. Where in the world can you go and say, well, there's always fire here at night. That's just, it goes away during the day, but at night there's always fire up there. Really? And this isn't a sign. This isn't proof of Yahweh's existence to them. They just kind of let it go and go, hey, nothing to see here, folks. They have so many, I guess in my opinion, the Israelites have so many things going for them and so many validations of Yahweh. And they just, I don't know how you can see that many things and not believe. And that's when it kills me today when I hear people say, well, if I could just see a miracle, then I would believe. Really? It didn't work for the Israelites. So why would it work for you? I mean, I know we're talking about different people. Yeah.
We try to flop it off or something. Oh, it's just a coincidence.
Yeah.
Well, people want a sign of God, and in particular scientists. The answer is really simple. Okay, let's talk. Science is about probabilities, right? You test hypothesis, you determine what the possibility of something happening is, if it's repeatable, and causality. Well, if you look at life, what are the chances that a planet is just the right temperature to support life? Life forms all on its own by accident, and then everything that life needs is there and provided on that planet. What are the chances of all these things happening? What are the chances that you'd have all these different species? I was just talking about one, but we're talking about, okay, let's count ants, let's count fish, let's count other mammals, let's count all these different life forms that we have on this planet.
And you leave ticks out.
I'd like to. Mosquitoes, fleas, there are a lot of things I could do. Cockroaches. I could get rid of a lot of things on this planet.
Stink
But-
bugs, like
Yeah, but all of these things serve some purpose. Okay, why do we have vultures? They're scavengers. They clean up. They clean up the debris. What do you think happens when somebody hits a deer on the side of the road? You think we always send out animal cleanup to come get rid or road maintenance? No. Goes off in the ditch and something eats it. It's dinner. We leave it there. Why? It's planned. Okay, this is how things work. All of this, what are the chances of, scientifically speaking, of that environment happening by accident? Last I checked, the answer is 0.000000, and eventually there's a 1 in there. Okay? So, scientifically speaking, Yahweh is a whole lot more likely than an accident to get us here. Just from the scientific community, if you follow their procedures that they refuse to follow when it comes to creation of life. And we love to say, hey, we know everything that goes into life, but can you make it? No. We can combine this and get life. Yeah, but did you make those two things you combined? Well, no. Well, then you didn't create life. We're recreating a woolly mammoth. Good for you, but did you create the woolly mammoth? Oh, no, we're recreating the woolly mammoth. So you didn't create anything. Sorry, I'm dwelling on that because I'm trying to make the point that Yahweh is the creator. There's no question about it, even if you want to use scientific information. And Israelites had all these examples of him as being God. So, anyway, they didn't go along with it. So we are going to stop here and pick up 34, I believe. Yeah, so we're going to pick up on chapter 1, verse 34 next week. So we'll go ahead and let me